This tweet proves me right on everything I've ever said about cheating in competitive Pokemon. Every single like on this tweet is agreement with Verlisify. But the problem is, the Pokemon community is so toxic, hateful, and deranged, they do not understand that. Now, the problem is, we're dealing with I'm a blisy, and I've already proven that they are a habitual liar, that I never said being handed a team is cheating. I said that Pokeaim got such a massive advantage from being handed a team, that's going to contribute to his top 8 more than anything, as proven by all the top players in competitive Pokemon who only top because of the massive advantage from hacking Pokemon. So yeah, not a single influencer in Pokemon can be honest to save their life, but this is the kicker. I agree, he has an advantage because he didn't have to worry about in-game crafting. That's my entire stance on cheating, and that also debunks all the idiots that go, oh, it's not cheating, they don't have an advantage. That's half the comments. Jinning doesn't give an advantage, so it's not cheating. And then the other half are Wolf fans that can't cope with the fact he's a proven cheater. And that's like the entire discussion here. Breaking the rules to gain an advantage is the literal definition of cheating. Cheating is wrong. How can the Pokemon, like, see, that's where the disconnect is. We're just like, yeah, cheating is wrong everywhere. We saw this with the Dr. Lupo thing. We're just like, whoa, Dr. Lupo cheated to try to steal $20,000 in prize money. Hey, Wolfe Glick cheats to steal prize money in Pokemon. Oh, it's based when Wolf does it, but we must cancel Dr. Lupo because it's wrong that he tried to cheat in a chess tournament. It's actually the Patrick meme. Breaking the rules to gain advantage is cheating, yeah? So Dr. Lupo cheated. Sounds good to me. And Wolf does the same exact thing, but in Pokemon, Wolf didn't cheat, you're an idiot, Verlisify. Like, how people can't make the jump. We're like, everywhere else cheating is wrong, except in Pokemon, and it's actually the definition of cheating. Even if you're a big ginning or hacking supporter, the fact is, it's cheating. And even, like, as people agree with me, in their own words, the cognitive dissonance is too strong. The toxicity and derangement is just that powerful. They can't put it together, and it blows my mind. But unless trading is banned from tournaments, what is the point of this complaint? It isn't banned. And I've never said that's banned. I've never said that's against the rules to trade for Pokemon. I've only talked about what the definition of cheating is. Breaking the rules to gain an advantage. Illegal Pokemon give you an advantage that breaks the rules. By the rules, it's a disqualification. And people have done it their entire career and lied about, like Wolfe Glick, or people that do it at Worlds, that should just be a ban, because that happens in every other form of competition, but just Pokemon is too corrupt on the Pokemon company side, and too toxic and cheat supporting on the actual player side. But like, see, like, I don't understand. It's actually a lie sandwich. We have lie, but we also have, wait, this proves everything Verlisify has ever said about cheating. And then the immediate contradiction in the next tweet. I view myself as not contributing to his win almost at all. But you just admitted that you gave him an advantage. So that's going to be a contribution to winning. And I even said in my video, when I made this video, I had no intention of being like, oh, blisy cheated Pokeaim's team. And I have never ever said being handed a team is cheating. Being handed a team is an advantage. And the reason why this isn't a problem with the whole trading complaint is Wolf proves that himself. The most popular person in competitive Pokemon is unable to get legal Pokemon from others, and they keep getting caught with hacked Pokemon. Not just once on the Moltres, but it also happened for the 25th anniversary team, where there were multiple Pokemon that had issues. Illegal Groudon and Incineroar. And then we have all the data mining of his officially posted teams to prove it. The odds of Wolf's Incineroar is a casual 1 in 139 billion. Omitting height and weight is a common mistake when fabricating data, says the maker of PK Hex. Also, if those odds are unconvincing, even though Wolf has this in his video where he's like, oh, what happens if you get a team off eBay? I gave it to someone to data mine the team and they said it's hacked because statistically impossible. When Verlisify says statistically impossible, that doesn't count. When Wolf says it, oh, it proves that all the Pokemon on eBay are hacked, even though you don't need a data miner to tell you that. And what this also proves is that Wolf now commissions data miners to check his team to make sure he doesn't get caught again, because he's been caught multiple times with multiple hacked teams. But trainer names should not have data at the end of the string. Incineroar has trash of TV that can be modified from a distribution. So it's hacked, it's modded, it breaks the rules, and that's the same thing where it's an edited Groudon that has impossible RNG values because the RNG seed will never create such a Pokemon. So if Wolfe Glick can't get legal Pokemon from others, the whole trading advantage issue isn't really a problem because it never really comes up, and it takes a collaboration between two of the largest Pokemon YouTubers to actually potentially have that. And I need to clarify, it's not only about the Ho-Oh and Giraffe rig, it's using RNG manipulation on the item printer. So now those items are illegal, which makes the Pokemon on Pokeaim's team that benefited from those items illegal, and the time saved being a cheated advantage. So we have an exceptional outlier for this example with the advantage. But the reality of VGC is that over 99% of top players are not getting other people to make them a legal team. They are just hacking it in. So they're breaking the rules for this admitted advantage, which is cheating, and that's why I don't acknowledge any of the top players for having skill inside of Pokemon. They are objectively illegitimate competitors. That's why Lance Armstrong lost all of his titles. It's why Barry Bonds will never be in the Hall of Fame. It's true of all sports and competition. If you are found to have used steroids in MMA, the match will be overturned. If you use an engine in chess, you will be disqualified and most likely banned. Hacking Pokemon gives an insurmountable time advantage and an infinite resource advantage, which is why it's only cheaters winning or topping or doing well in Pokemon VGC events. So Verlisify always right, almost everyone agrees with me, but because of derangement they can't, and then it's just toxicity and hatred, and somehow I'm the bad guy in all of this. Also, here's where it gets extra funny, because Blisy can't be honest for a moment in his life. Pokeaim's Ho-Oh and Giraffe rig literally took me longer to get than they otherwise would have because I used RNG manipulation. Would have been faster just to catch and cap them in Scarlet and Violet. I did it to be extra, except this is a lie because the Giraffe rig and Ho-Oh were shiny. Ho-Oh is shiny locked in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and also that's why people RNG, because it's faster to get them shiny through RNGing. And then anyone that says shinies don't give an advantage is just an idiot who's objectively wrong, because the animation of shinies takes longer. So you do gain a small time advantage, and there are strategies built around it called time over death, and that's also something Wolfe admitted to back in the early days, and that's why he had shiny legendaries and shiny Pokemon he hacked in back in Generation 5, because it made timer stalling a lot easier. Now, is timer as relevant these days? No, but the fact is, even though it's a slight advantage, having shiny Pokemon is an advantage. Putting time pressure on the opponent is an advantage, and that is gained through illegal actions with RNG manipulation. And then he admits to giving Pokeaim illegal Pokemon, which goes back to my video where I said, oh, I didn't care about calling this team cheated. My entire point is getting gifted a team is an advantage, but everyone else in every other situation is doing it through hacking Pokemon and cheating. So once again, Verlisify always right. But because these sad, miserable people have made their entire lives hating Verlisify because they are that worthless, they are not allowed, they cannot accept being wrong, or else everything shatters. It's incredible that that's like what Pokemon has become. And I think I found a use case making Suave's team where it was faster to get them on in Generation 5. I did the Ho-Oh and Fire Red Leaf Green because I got a different stream goal too early and landed on triple frame perfect trick in like an hour. Suave used a Ho-Oh and I just used Snacksworth and got it in 10 minutes. Okay, but also there's kind of like, how many times can you do that? If you're trying to get Pokemon for other people, then that means you have to make a new save file, go through everything, get through all the DLC, farm out Snacksworth until you get the actual Ho-Oh story, and then you catch Ho-Oh, and it turns out it's actually like longer than RNGing to get the Ho-Oh in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or get another Ho-Oh because you already gave yours away. Since none of these players are legitimate, they don't understand how legitimacy interacts inside of Pokemon and why it's such a massive advantage. Also, to be clear, RNG manipulations in Generation 3 take a lot of skill. Doesn't matter because it's cheating. Literally no one can get their target first try every time. That's why I keep coming back to them. They're fun. Last addendum, I don't charge for my services. Now the fun thing is, he actually has to say that because buying Pokemon from other people is explicitly against the rules. Now is it pretty much impossible to prove? Yeah, but those Pokemon are illegal by the Pokemon TOS, confirmed directly by Pokemon Company support. So that also gets rid of the other thing where people say, well, Wolfe is rich, or X person is rich, so they can just buy their Pokemon. Well, one, they won't be buying legal Pokemon, doubly proved by Wolfe. One intentionally, one unintentionally. And then if someone's offering services like, yeah, I'll make you like a completely legal team, I'll stream the entire thing, it'll be X amount per Pokemon, well, that's actually against the rules, so you can't use any of that as leverage for advantage inside of competitive Pokemon. Now, what about RNG manipulation being against the rules? Because this person isn't saying anything wrong. It's an external device you use to let you know when to stop the roulette to hit the jackpot every time if you time it correctly. Now, the external device thing comes from the VGC rules, so flashbang warning. Going to give you just that little bit of extra second. Here you go. Where use of external devices such as a mobile app to modify or create items or Pokemon in a competitor's battle team is expressly forbidden. So we have items or Pokemon. You can't hack in 999 rare candies or vitamins or bottle caps or Terra shards and then just like, oh, but I caught the Pokemon legally and then I used the items on it, so it's still legal. No, that Pokemon is 100% illegal, which means if you get items in any way illegitimately, those Pokemon are illegal. So that's also another really dishonest thing about Blisy. Wow, who would have guessed? That's not only about the Ho-Oh and Giraffe rig, but using the Lotto. So that's what this tweet is about, but then I'm a Blisy is either too stupid to understand that, or is deflecting because, yeah, that's also another point that hurts it. So, flashbang warning once again as we go back to the rule page. Here we go. External devices. It's not only mobile apps, because there is no doubt that using PK Hex is hacking, is game modification that is unauthorized that leads to hacked Pokemon. And here's where the rules trip up a lot of idiots, because they say, oh, but the Pokemon have quote-unquote legal stats. There's no such thing as legal stats from illegal manipulation. Every single gen Pokemon, even if it's within the bounds of that Pokemon's stats and abilities and potential and all that, is 100% illegal, proven by these rules. There is no getting around it. There's no, oh, the Pokemon is legal otherwise. No, the Pokemon is 100% illegal. The whole legal, legit, illegal argument that people make is a complete lie. There's nothing in the official rules about that. That's something that cheaters made up. So using software on a computer counts as an external device. So any unauthorized third-party software means the Pokemon is illegal, and that goes into the Pokemon TOS. So we have 5 rights and restrictions. You can't do any of these things. Facilitate the use of any unauthorized third-party software, e.g. bots, mods, hacks, and scripts. But this isn't all of them. These are examples that no unauthorized third-party software is inside of the TOS. Now, people are going to say, oh, but this TOS doesn't apply to the Pokemon games. Wrong. That goes back to my whole you can't purchase Pokemon. That's Rule 9. You can't use it for commercial purposes. And then when I said, hey, can I buy Pokemon? Pokemon support said, no, that violates Rule 9. That's why I contacted Pokemon support asking, hey, am I allowed to buy a Pokemon for Pokemon Worlds or use any bought Pokemon for Pokemon VGC? And they didn't say like, oh, you should use Pokemon that you got yourself because you can't trust if it's going to be legal or not. They straight up pointed me to the terms of use on the website. The link in the support ticket goes here, and this is what I've always been referencing. So that means this applies to the Pokemon games and Pokemon VGC. So any hacking, like that's why it's like, oh, it turns out Rule 4.3 is absolute, and it's as simple as it's stated. The only people trying to worm around it are scumbag cheaters. And just in case people try to get through that, there's also the normal gameplay clause. Yeah, having to download unauthorized third-party software that can only exist through breaking TOS and hacking the game, and breaking the TOS even further by decomposing, disassembling, or reverse engineering the service. This is why it's against the rules. People say, oh, you don't have to hack your game to RNG, but you're using tools that 100% cannot exist without hacking. It is impossible to find when to stop the roulette without breaking the Pokemon TOS, which means anything gained from that roulette is illegal for VGC. And then you have idiots like Hayden coming in saying, oh, then using Cerebi is cheating. That does not hold up in any way, and anyone using that argument is a cheater trying to defend their cheating by getting illegal Pokemon through RNG manipulation, or they're trying to take it all the way to Gen Pokemon being legal. And just like how cheating is wrong is something that shouldn't need to be explained, but it needs to for Pokemon, public information Being hosted on a website is not an external software that's cheating and doesn't allow you anything, especially when it's like, oh, it's finding a TM on the route. Actually taking it that far because he's just evil. The moral of the story is, in my opinion, I just don't really care. It's not your opinion. The fact is, it's cheating. And cheating is wrong. If anything makes competitive Pokemon more accessible instead of mindless grinding, I'm all for it. Even if that means cheating and then lying about to steal prize money, because he's a scumbag. And Blisy has also tried to turn the legitimacy argument, where it's just like, yeah, you go on Bulbapedia, you see a Pokemon stats, that's no different than RNG manipulation to hit invisible values that can only be obtained through hacking the game. Even though Pokemon stats are visible and the stat calculation is entirely deterministic. Actually, I already broke that down, so if you need more proof that Blisy is a compulsive liar, here you go. It really sucks that I constantly have to deal with the fallout of bad actors. I've gotten tons of comments recently from people saying that my videos about Wolfey have been debunked since he could have RNG'd his team in a realistic amount of time. So the premise of the video is explicitly about Marcus and Wolf's Impossible Odds team being made accessible through the use of RNG. But it's a completely fraudulent video. And that's not me making an unsupported crazy claim. Actually, the maker of the video saved me a lot of time by confirming the video is fraudulent himself. You see, there's a teensy-weensy little problem. RNG was not possible at the time Wolfe and Marcus made their teams. And there's tons of documentation around this, on top of the admittance, once again, from the video maker. The video is a complete lie to say competitive Pokemon in Generation 6 when talking about the team that was acquired in 2016. And even then, RNG wasn't possible without hacking until very recently, so the whole thing is fraudulent. Unfortunately, that's just the tip of the bad actor Bliceberg. That looked better on script. So in the replies, they say RNGing is completely legal, which is crazy considering it can only exist through hacking the game and reverse engineering hidden RNG generation, and then has to use other hidden values like secret IDs. Hello, Pokemon TOS. Then, this is used to create Pokemon in a player's team. Hello, VGC rules. No wonder no former Pokemon champion has come out saying, man, it took a long time, but that RNG was worth it to win Worlds, because they know they would get in trouble. Alright, so you want to win the argument? Have Cybertron come out as a Pokemon Company employee and make the official statement that he RNG'd back in Generation 5, because we know he did. Hello, 1 in trillions of odds. And also say Play Pokemon has always considered RNG legal, and then I retract everything I've ever said about RNG being illegal. I take down this video, issue a major apology to everyone I've affected with those statements. But the thing is, I only hold this belief because I was told through Pokemon Company support emails that RNGing is against the rules. Not only that, I was told in person at Colorado Springs 2012 Regional Championship that RNGing Pokemon is illegal. Oh, that brings up another Pokemon community lie, because habitual liar Wolfe Glick said I went 0-4 in my only regional event. No, I went 0-3 drop, but that was at Seattle Regionals. I've been to more than one regionals, but people keep attacking like, well, you know, I got blown out in my only VGC event. That's just a lie, but once again, Wolfe, he only knows how to lie, cheat, and steal. Damn. And the story about me going 0-3 is an aside, but I might as well try to debunk as many lies about me as possible in this video. So, I was coming down with the flu because I went to a friend's house to practice, and he just went to bed and left me in the living room, and I ended up having to sleep on the floor without a blanket. It was at like 1 in the morning, so I also didn't have a way of getting back home, but at that point it was so late that I wasn't going to get good sleep anyways, and then I got so sick at the event, I had to drop, and I had to have a friend walk me home because I was not doing good. I was definitely not at peak performance. I was actually going to win the first round, and if I remember correctly, it was against someone that got top 16 or top 8 at the Oregon Regionals, and they like admitted like, yeah, I 100% beat them, but the problem is I was getting sick, so I misclicked. And they already were like, yeah, you win without that misclick. So it was just a bad thing. I was sick, I tilted, and I was like, you know what? Not worth it, going home. Either way, it was Generation 5 when I was told that RNGing is against the rules by official Pokemon sources. That was before I even had a Pokemon YouTube channel. I did not think we'd have to be this point over a decade later where idiots can't understand that RNGing is against the rules, and that should be obvious. And I can't bring up the support ticket because they had a completely different support system back then. They revamped it around sometime 2013, I think. Like, the Pokemon Company did a big overhaul on the website and login. So that's lost to time. But it shouldn't be a stretch to think, man, the Pokemon Company doesn't want you using hacked tools to RNG manipulate the game to bypass tens of thousands of hours of gameplay. And as we go deeper into the iceberg, that doesn't even matter because in the video, there's an interview with Marcus who admits they didn't RNG the team. They didn't even obtain the Pokemon themselves. So let me put the rules here again and remind everyone, regardless if traded for. So the video double confirms that Marcus cheated with the exact same team that Wolfey cheated with. Neat. And then we hit peak stupidity. The defense for RNG being okay is that you need to hack your game to find out Pokemon-based stats. If you can immediately detect the false equivalents, congratulations, your IQ is above room temperature. So this guy thinks and says that going on Bulbapedia, Cerebi, etc. and seeing a Pokemon's base stats is the exact same as downloading an RNG program and then doing the incredibly precise manipulation steps to generate a Pokemon in the game. Rules. Wait, I've heard this one before. Formal Verlis, take it from here.
Again, you know, if you want to get really purist in it, and I'm sure that there are people in chat right now that know examples of this. You know, your IVs are not numbers that we're supposed to know either.
If you use IVs, you know, they're trying to turn me into a hypocrite. However, I've got them covered right here, guys. So this little beauty, which is also being green screen, is the official Pokedex for Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It's even like the Pokemon Company International logo. You know, we got the official strategy guide. And in the official strategy guide, they talk about IVs. Right here, we have, for anyone that owns this for themselves, I don't know if I can like get it to show up on the camera really well. Page 139. Inheritance items that can be held by Pokemon at the daycare. The power weight passes the user's base hit HP onto Pokemon who hatches from the egg. So they're talking about, like, in this book, they have different terms. Instead of calling it a sweeper, they call it a striker. So, you know, we don't have, like, official terms for, like, EVs and IVs and stuff. They just call them, like, values and stats and stuff. So when they reference base HP in this book, they do it several times, they're talking about the base stats as well as the IVs. So if you want to take the IV, this value that we shouldn't know anything about, you know, we shouldn't know anything about this. If we take it from the official hand guide, we can see that we can actually learn about IV training through this method. Also, I don't know anywhere in this book where it says go to www.pokemonrng.com to download the official RNG seed. That way you can get shiny, legendary, perfect IV Pokemon all day long. I just don't see it, guys. I'm very sorry I couldn't really bring that information to you like that. Wait, I still have that book. So, if we go back to page 139, we have our base stat stuff right here, but I found even more craziness while trying to debunk this fool. So, page 138, they talk about what to check on the Pokemon you catch. Stats. Similar Pokemon can have different stats. I guess I'll put it somewhere on screen. It gets even crazier. It says, get a Pokemon's potential analyzed at the Battle Tower, page 110. And that's where we learn about the max IVs on a Pokemon through evaluation. If we go back a couple of pages, we have page 134, and it says, rules for base stats. Every Pokemon has 6 stats. Each stat has its own base stat number. Wow. So the more I flip through this book, the more I find, see page 481 for more on natures and characteristics. Wait, characteristics like mischievous and stuff. That way you can find a Pokemon's highest IV value. And there's a table for that. And natures. There's everything about Pokemon abilities, there's everything about held items, there's everything about moves, and the move effects. Okay, so I'll admit it'll be a bit more difficult to find out the damage calculation formula, but still very possible, especially because all of these are visible values. You can take a Pokemon's attack, you can take the base power of a move, you can interact that with the defense and hit points of an enemy Pokemon, keep working that out, and it's absolutely possible to find the damage the damage formula without hacking. And then because everything is in this book, you can actually make Pokemon Showdown just off of official Pokemon Company international guides. These kids are ill. So a Pokemon's max stat value is given to you by the game, and then you can just catch and corroborate data for a single species of Pokemon and then discover 0 through 31 IVs without hacking. You apply that to different species of Pokemon, and then you have extreme outliers like Blisy and Shuckle. Boom. This simple formula. 2 times base stats plus 5. Deemed impossible to obtain without hacking and reverse engineering, thus making this acceptable and legal. This is a new low, even for the Pokemon community. And now, I get to sit back and wait for the defamatory response video because there's no other good, honest influencers in the Pokemon community. So I'm going to get ahead of that video by double debunking him right now, because even if it was not possible to find out a Pokemon's base stats without hacking, it's still a false equivalence. The two things are not comparable. Knowledge versus hacking that is directly correlated to the acquisition of a Pokemon through RNG manipulation. To say that if RNG manipulation is against the rules, it also means that stats and hidden values are against the rules is so deranged. It would mean that every person that's used Bulbapedia or Cerebi and just gone on a Pokemon page, they are now taking in illegal information. Again, there's a reason why Pokemon Company employees like Cybertron, they don't say anything about the RNG, but they use Pokemon Showdown in their content. Same thing with any other major competitor. They don't talk about that they use Pika Hex or that they RNG'd in the past, but they use Pokemon Showdown for all of their training and practice and other tools as well. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.